Today on 7th Circle Gaming, we're going to be analyzing the game Hollow Knight Silksong. And we've chosen to analyze this game today for two main reasons. The first is it's a game that many players are going to want to nominate for their Game of the Year for the year 2025. The second reason that we've chosen to analyze this particular game is because it gives us an opportunity to reiterate a point that maybe we don't make often enough. Of course, all of that is for the future. For right now, let's get to the full disclosure. If you're interested in reading through all of this, just pause the video now and have a read at your leisure. But if that's not really your thing, just let the video run. And now, with all of the disclosures out of the way, let's move on and talk about the overworld for Silksong. Unfortunately, there is no overworld as such, so we'll instead move on and talk about the in-game world. From what we can see here, the in-game world is what we might call a high fantasy world, although that might be stretching the term a bit much. The in-game world includes recognizable objects like plants and insects, but that's where the relatable objects end. Having already established that the user interface is minimalistic, let's now discuss what it does show us. At the top left-hand corner of our screen, we have the character health indicator. Just below that, we have what we're going to term the Magicka Reservoir. To the right of this would be the cooldown timers for special abilities if we'd had any unlocked at this point in the game. And that's really all there is to say about the user interface and the in-game world. For immersion, the game has earned a score of 6 out of 15, which is below average. The game seems to rely primarily on presentation, challenge, and story to get players immersed into the in-game world. Although we wouldn't be remiss if we did not mention the importance of audio to creating immersion. For difficulty, the game has earned a score of 4 out of 15. The game lacks any difficulty settings as such, and we were unable to detect any options in the settings menu that would impact difficulty in any obvious way. The user interface is standard for the platforming genre. And in all of our evaluation sessions, we were unable to find any significant difference in usability or playability between gamepad and mouse and keyboard. In the area of lasting appeal, the game has earned a score of 1 out of 15, since it offers very little to players other than the opportunity to play through the game a second or potentially a third time. And now it's time for the overall score. Overall, Hollow Knight Silksong has earned a score of 3.67 out of 15, although some players may choose to round that up to a 4 out of 15. Either way, it's frankly a very low score. While we do admit that the game is technically competent and we appreciate the fact that it automatically recognized our gamepad, we must also admit that it is a story-based game and offers very little in terms of replayability. And that's all the objectivity for this video, so please get out your handfuls of salt and let's get subjective. Hollow Knight Silksong is in the Metroidvania stroke platformer genre, and that's a pretty good starter genre for either new gamers or to recommend to people that are new to gaming in general. We also admit that the game is graphically very attractive. But before we get to our discussion of whether or not this game deserves to be Game of the Year for the year 2025, we do want to reiterate a point that maybe we don't make often enough. And that is that player performance significantly impacts their opinion of a game. Players that picked up a game like Hollow Knight Silksong, which is intentionally difficult and experienced a fair amount of success, are likely to rate the game higher than players that picked up the same game and were not able to experience a similar level of success. And that's part of the reason that we choose to analyze the difficulty settings offered by a game when we analyze a game. And now let's move on to the real reason that anyone is really here. Do we believe that Hollow Knight, Silksong, deserves to be Game of the Year 2025? Does Game of the Year mean to be the best game produced that year, as subjective a metric as that is, or does it mean something else, as maybe a game which encompassed the general mood of the year, or does it mean something else entirely? But was Hollow Knight Silksong the best game produced in the year 2025? Well, we would agree that graphically it's impressive. It very much resembles an old hand-drawn cartoon. While the game is not without its challenges, it is dangerously close to what has been termed a cozy game. And for some players, maybe that's exactly what they were looking for in the year past. But does that necessarily make it Game of the Year? For us here at 7th Circle Gaming, it certainly wasn't the highest rated game that we analyzed this year, but whether or not it was personally your Game of the Year for 2025, that's something to let us know in the comments section below, and you can also let us know what your personal criteria are for Game of the Year. And a hearty congratulations to everyone who watched all the way to the end of the video. We wish you a prosperous new year, and we look forward to reading your comments and requests for other games in the comments section below. Until the next video from 7th Circle Gaming, goodbye.